AI has us lying to each other. This is what I've decided. This is sort of a half-formed thought. Today is going to be a little bit loose because I haven't fully locked in this thought, and I'd be really eager for your feedback here. But I'm going to bounce this off you for a little bit, so bear with me. I'm Jake Ward. This is the Rip Current. We look at the big invisible forces that are moving us this way and that. And this dishonesty that I'm describing, I want to describe to you first in terms of me, because I'm doing this too. I don't want to be blaming anybody else. So let's start with my own sins, and we'll work our way out from there. So I use ChatGPT for the most part. I have a Claude account. Gemini comes up when I use Google, but I use ChatGPT for the most part, I think just out of habit. It was the first one that came along, and I'm not doing coding, so I don't care about how much better Claude or Gemini is at that. I'm really just looking for something that can quickly synthesize a lot of information for me, right? In reporting, that's very useful. But more and more, I'm using it also to explain things to me that I just don't understand. And one thing I do not frickin' understand at all, and I'm trying to learn as rapidly as possible because my whole livelihood depends on it, is online marketing, right? I'm in this frickin' YouTube Substack world now in which I have to learn, how to get this thing that I do in front of everybody, in front of the eyeballs, right? I've worked for years and years and years in places that took care of that for me. The cable channel had its viewers, audience development was somebody else's job. But now I'm that guy. I have to do all of that. And one of the ways that you do that, it turns out, and this is why the social media companies are as rich as they are, is you do it by paying for advertising on social media. Facebook ads, TikTok ads, YouTube ads. This is how you grow a following. I am lucky, and I mean really lucky, to have 132,000 TikTok followers. Fantastic. Bless you, TikTok followers. I'm so grateful to you. It's so great. And that distribution channel has been such a cool way. I mean, it's just a great community. I just love the people that I get to interact with on TikTok. It's been hugely rewarding. But the challenge is that TikTok doesn't really pay any money. And so I have to figure out how I'm going to get people over to YouTube, which can monetize to the point where, I know people who have like multi-person teams because the revenue that comes in from TikTok can be from YouTube can be very, very good. But you can't just do that organically. It turns out that the social media companies will cap your reach at a certain point, and you got to pay some money in order to get past a certain threshold. And so I've been experimenting with that. But I don't know anything about this, like I say. And so I went to YouTube. Sorry. I went to ChatGPT. So many tools, you guys. ChatGPT to ask, how do I do this? Explain to me like a dummy how I do this. And what it basically is suggesting to me is that I need to port over my TikTok people to YouTube by doing paid ads on TikTok, seeing how people respond, and then taking those learnings over to YouTube to figure out who it is I should be advertising to on YouTube to draw them in. I hate all of this, by the way. Saying all of this makes me crazy. I don't like any of this that I'm describing with you. I can get interested intellectually in almost anything, but this thing this is not how the world was supposed to work in my view. So it has me running through a few metrics. Average watch time. This is supposed to be the king metric. How often, how much do they watch? How many people get past the first 2 seconds is another metric I'm supposed to look at. But then this is the one that I want to point out to you. So the third one here is comments per 1,000 views, the thinking signal. And it's so sycophantic. It's like, this is where your kind of content shines. Oh, thanks, ChatGPT. I appreciate that. So check it out. It says good comments look like, wait, but doesn't this also mean, or I work in X and this is exactly the problem, or I disagree because, and then it says weak comments look like fire emoji, great video, or emojis only. And the summary statement it gives me here is disagreement is excellent. Silence is bad. So if I begin, so that's the first thing I'm going to just sort of tell you about. We're going to come back to that. Now I want to talk about the dishonesty. I think we are operating in a world right now in which everyone is pretending that this stuff is their own stuff because we don't have the social training to be honest with one another about how we do what we do. I think this is one of the great failures of so many professions. And journalism, I think, is one of them, right? We just don't like to explain how we do what we do, how we make the choices about what stories to cover, how we go about covering those stories. The process is really kept secret by people and I think it's a terrible tendency. I think that we should be, as journalists, explaining how we do what we do all the time, because, and I think every interview we do, we should just like put out raw, like in addition to the edited version, like we should just be explaining our work, showing our work. because that's how you create credibility. That's how people come to believe, that you are making real choices. In the same way, I think that a lot of people now are passing off AI as their own work, right? I'm going to tell you more in a future installment about a big experiment I've been doing around pitching people for my appearances on podcasts. I've been using AI to do some of that, and what a weird experiment that's been. We're going to talk about that in the future, because the experiment's not quite done yet. But everyone, including myself, right, likes to pretend that this work that ChatGPT makes possible is somehow our work, right? And I think that this is part of the marketing promise of the whole freaking industry. Is the unspoken part of it is not, it's not just you can get so much more done. It's you can get so much more done and look like you did it all. That's really the promise, I think, of AI at the moment, is you can fool your boomer boss by passing off what our product does for you as your own work. And I think we're in this moment right now, this adolescent moment where that does work. Like, I can't tell you how many people, I know who can't tell the difference between AI content and real content. And I think increasingly that's going to be the case anyway, to the point where suddenly we're not going to believe anything anymore, which is a whole other issue. But this passing off of AI as our own work, I think, is going to be a really bad thing. It also, I think, that unspoken marketing message, you can pass this off to your boss who doesn't know that you used AI, is also bound up in another assumption that I think the people who make these products are basing their ideas on, which is that they assume that everyone using this stuff is going to have the sort of critical thinking skills made possible by the last generation of education in which you did your own work and you had to write the paper yourself. I think the folks who make these systems believe unconsciously that we're going to bring the kinds of standards to this stuff that only the last generation of education made possible. And they have not accounted for the possibility that going forward, I speak to professors and teachers all the time who now say that, their students are at the place where they can't tell you the difference between, where they don't believe there is a difference between having read a book and having read ChatGPT's summary of that book. And as someone who is increasingly using ChatGPT to summarize things for me, I think I'm sliding into that, right? I'm starting to get to the place where, like, ChatGPT describing a thing, me following those links, makes me feel as if, in the old days, we used to talk about the New York Review of Books as the ultimate cheater's guide. It's a great format because it gives you a summary of a subject with a few books that touch that subject. So you can be like, well, as I often say, some people prefer this writer, but I prefer this writer on that topic, when in fact, those are just the writers that are mentioned in the New York Review of Books write-up. It's that kind of thing. And I think part of its marketing appeal right now is that we are all so quick to lie to each other about its role in our lives. And the problem with that is that I think eventually we start believing our own lies. And I get to the place where I start thinking that I actually do know something about, in this case, YouTube marketing, right? Or social media marketing in general. And so again, like, now that we're in this world where this kind of advice is coming to me in this extremely digestible and very convincing sounding format, I'm being indoctrinated with the idea that disagreement, right, that fighting online is what I should be looking for, that that's a metric I should be scanning my stuff for. When in fact, like, my intellectual brand as a person is trying to come to consensus, trying to come to a place where people who are very far apart on an issue can learn from each other and everyone gets smarter and more flexible and more ready for the future as a result. Like, that's what I'm about. I don't like fighting online. One of the things I've always hated about, for instance, congressional subcommittee hearings where an expert is called up in front of Congress people to testify, makes me crazy, because as soon as you put the cameras on those people, everyone's performing. Everyone's performing. No one's asking a real question. The CEO of some company that I would love to interview is performing, and everyone gets to feel at the end as if it was a real exchange, when in fact nothing was exchanged. Just everybody said their pre-rehearsed thing, and then that was that. And And so that format, I think if everyone like me who's trying to break through on these channels is coming to something like ChatGPT for advice on how to do so, and its advice includes things like, because it's just regurgitating what is statistically, the thing written most often about this stuff online is, you want your people to fight with you. You want comments in which they disagree with you. All of that, I think, is going to, and I think nothing locks in the illusion that that was my idea, like passing it off as my idea to other people. I just think I'm being reprogrammed by this thing. And I think all of us are being reprogrammed in that way. And I don't know if I believe that I don't know what I believe. I mean, again, I don't know the answer to this question, you guys. I'm thinking out loud with you here. Someone once told me that that's the key to being a thoughtful journalist these days, is just think it out loud. And that's what I'm trying to do. It's just like, I don't know the answer to this question. Is the answer to just be a lot more honest about when we use AI, like label your work when AI is involved, right? Should we be able to do that? Or, should we just be trying to ban the whole fucking thing? Like, I don't know the answer to this question. I don't know. But I do know that the dishonesty of this moment in which we are passing off these thoughts as our own is both bad because we are creating a culture of dishonesty, but it is also bad because it's going to convince us that these ideas are our own, because we're going to be so determined to pretend that they are our own with other people. That, I would say, is my number one concern here. I'm really curious what you think about this, because I honestly don't know the answer to this question. Again, this has been a thinking out loud session with Jake Ward. Thanks so much. The Rip Current is produced and created by me, Jacob Ward. And if you liked this show and you want more content like this, go to theripcurrent.com, where I publish a weekly newsletter that covers these same sorts of stories of the big invisible forces that have us all in their grip. And if you want to really do me a favor, if you could go to where you have listened to this or watched it and like it, share it, or even better, review it. Holy cow, is that helpful? It's the best possible way for me to find a new audience. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks for listening.